no more than about 2 feet behind me.
Oh, wow.
And the entire time of skidding. I skidded about, they said, estimated between about 60, 65 feet before I stopped, and the car stopped just within about a foot of me from going over top of me. And the buddy of mine who was driving, not a scratch on him. Not a single scratch on him. But the side of the car where I was sitting had gotten flattened almost down to the seat. So if I'd been in the car, I would have either been decapitated or smushed, one of the two. Well, when he got out of the car, a buddy of mine, he jumped out, and of course traffic has stopped, and they're all gathering around to see this body on the bridge. I was a bloody mess of, my bone was literally just, you can visualize the Elephant Man. That's what my face looked like.
Oh, wow.
And
Gee.
yeah, and so I'm sorry, go ahead, James.
I was just saying, wow, yeah, that's a whole lot to go through. Do me a favor, quit trying to break the record for most times surviving these things. Jeez.
Hey, I got a roll going on here. If I'm a cat, I've got 3 more lives to go. But yeah, so I mean, and I remember at that point that I looked up at him and I was trying to speak, but I couldn't. And I could feel the blood filling in my lungs. And then all of a sudden, it was like I closed my eyes for a second, and then I was outside of myself. And I was able to look back, and I could see my body laying there on the road, him holding my head, people gathered all around. And then all of a sudden, I see the paramedics backing the truck up, the van, or the ambulance up to where I was at.
Okay, now I got to ask you a question, not to interrupt
Sure.
you. Okay, when you could see yourself, I got to ask you a question. And this is always, I always wondered this. Could you feel your body at all at that point?
No.
Okay.
It's like your umbilical cord to life has been disconnected. That body, it's you, but it doesn't have the same meaning. It doesn't. You're just like, how do I explain this? Imagine jumping out of an airplane, and I think you have prior military, so you might understand this one. Jumping out of the airplane, thinking the parachute's going to open, and suddenly you realize the parachute's not there. You're just faced with, okay, I'm going to fall.
Yeah.
So that's
RW,
go ahead.
RW, could you hear everybody and everything around you? Like normal, you could hear everything?
Yep, certainly could. I heard the paramedics. I heard the deputy who was on the road there telling people to step back, to give him room, give the paramedics room. I heard the paramedics trying to revive me. They even did what's the needle that they stick into your heart to adrenaline?
Yeah.
To try to restart. Yeah, they stabbed me, and I have a little mark on my chest where they did that.
Now,
it had no effect.
How long? I'm just curious, RW, not to interrupt, but how long were you actually clinically dead for before you came back that time?
They registered it at over 12 and a half minutes, I think it was, and that was just from their moment of them getting me in the back of the EMS.
Oh, my God.
The EMS said that it could have been longer, but from the time they actually got me in the EMS and tried to hook up a vital to me and could not get a heartbeat, could not get any kind of activity from my body at all.
Now, I got to ask you a question now, because this is bringing up all kinds of thoughts in my mind. So here you are, you're clinically dead, you see what's going on. Did you start seeing relatives and
that's where I was about to go with, is as soon as I saw the EMS backing up, and they were backing up there, and I saw them getting out of the truck, I was only there just like an observer, is what it really felt like. Suddenly I became aware to look to my right, and as I looked to my right, visualize like you're just looking straight off into wherever you're sitting at right now. You're in the studio, James. I guess you're in your studio or your home. Now visualize you're just looking straight ahead, and then all of a sudden a door out of nowhere, just like in Twilight Zone. You brought up Twilight Zone earlier. A door just automatically opens up, and you feel compelled to go through that door. You know you're supposed to. There's no one telling you to do it. You just know you're supposed to.
Now,
And
I got to ask you a question. This door, one thing, my friend who's no longer with us, Art Bell,
right.
one of his guests was on, Stephen Lear, I believe, was saying, don't go into the light. It's a trick. You want to go into black. Did you see a light? It drew you to the door, or what was it like? That's what I got to get that out of you.
Well, it's kind of in the process. The way it went for me was I saw the door, and it was like space had opened up. And as I stepped through the door, suddenly I was no longer on this planet. I was actually out in outer space. That's what it appeared to me to look like. And I had this.
Did you see any? Did you see any loved ones when you crossed over there, or what did you see besides?
I did. When I got through going through space, the first thought that went through my mind, and I remember, or through my consciousness of thinking, was, "Do I have clothes on?" I mean, I guess it was my first thought. And I remember I looked, and it didn't matter that I didn't have any on. I had zero clothes. But I didn't need clothes because my body was not, the way I looked was not how I looked here. Your spirit, or whatever, your soul, has got a different look to it than what your body does. So I remember going through, and the next thought that came to me was, everything here, it felt like it had been a dream. Everything that I had gone through, every good time, every bad time, everything that I had experienced here on this earth had been just like a dream. And
where you're at there was like your reality, and life here was like dream, like vice versa.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, like the Matrix, almost like the Matrix in that certain sense. Because that's what it felt like. It felt like that was the reality, and this had been the dream episode. And as I was going through it, I look and I see what I visualize, or what I describe as like a black hole. But it was small. When I say small, it was like size of a quarter. And I knew I was going to go through it, but I couldn't understand how I was going to fit. That was the only first thought. The next thought that came to my mind is, I'm seeing this little black dot. How am I going to go through that? Suddenly, as I got closer, the blackness, it increased in size, and I was able to go through it, and it was like a tunnel.
RW, that's what I'm getting at. Lear was telling Art Bell, you want to go through the black, not through the light. And that you're saying you saw this thing that was black, and you, a tunnel, and you went into it. What happened when you went into that tunnel?
When I went into it, there was try to imagine like a kaleidoscope. You know how you see the different colors changing all around as you twist the tube?
Uh-huh.
That's the way this was. The colors inside were brilliant, and they were changing rapidly. Colors that I can't even describe. And it was almost like I was on a conveyor belt of a sort. But I really wasn't touching anything. I was sort of like levitating, floating through it as I was going through it. And my first thought was, while I was in the tunnel, was, oh my God, my son. How will my son deal with this? And I looked to my left, and I saw, it was almost like a TV or a screen that appeared, and I saw my son receiving the news. He was 6 years old at the time, receiving the news that your father has, and it was my ex-wife telling him, your father passed away last night. And I saw him crying and very upset. And then I looked to my right, and I saw another screen, and I saw my mom receiving the phone call that your son died tonight in a car accident. And she was very upset. And I remembered the exact verbiage that was said to her and exact verbiage that she said. And that was the only two. That was the only two that I saw what would be life for them if I stayed gone.
Now,
and as I was getting close to the end of the tunnel, I could see a silhouette of someone at the end. And I thought, I know that person. I couldn't see them, but I knew them. And as I got closer, I could see it was my grandfather, who had passed away a few years before. And he and I were very close. And he was standing there with his arms reached out to me. And as I got close to him, within, like, say, 5 feet or so of him, he's on the other side of the tunnel. I'm still in the tunnel, but at the end of it. And he looks up, and it was like this light shined down on him. And then he looked at me, and he says, "You can't come yet. It's not your time." And I said, "But I want to." He says, "No, you got to go back." And he says, "You got some things you've got to do yet." And I said, "When will I see you again?" He goes, "Oh, you'll be seeing me again real soon." He said, "But time doesn't mean anything to you or to us here." He says, "So we'll be seeing you." I said, "Okay." And then I turned around, and it was like my body. It was like being on one of those fast rides at the fair where it spins you around and around. It was like I was suddenly being propelled backwards, and I was flying. And as I flew, I went out the tunnel, came out through space, came back. I could see the Earth. I saw the hospital. I mean, I was rapidly going. I saw the rooftop to the hospital. I was able to describe the rooftop of the hospital to the doctors too. I had never been on the rooftop, so I couldn't. There was no way for me to know this.
Now I got to ask you another question. When you were in that tunnel and going back, your senses, did you smell anything, taste anything, or? I mean, okay.
None of that. None of that. I did have feelings, but it was emotions. Not feelings like a pain. No. There was no sadness. There was no anger. There was none of that. But it was just emotions of, what am I going to do now? How am I going to pull this off?
I got to ask a question too, R.W. You were probably dead for close to 20 minutes. Now, in your time over on the other side, did it seem a lot longer or a lot shorter than that 20 minutes?
A lot longer. I felt like I was there for days or longer. I really did, and that was only that was the first time that I had ever clinically died. The next time was at Moffitt, and that was 10 years ago. And on that one, I went through the tunnel, actually came out on the other side, met with loved ones that had been deceased and passed on. Some of them recently, and some of them that. And then I saw people that had not passed away yet here, but were there. And they told me that when you go back, I'm going to be passing soon. So time was different for them. In other words, like, we're the behind the scene, or we're behind the actual time level of what time actually is. And but I felt like I was there for, I don't know, it felt like years that I was there that last time.
That's scary.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to come back. The feeling was being so utterly content, so at peace. I've done all the, I've heard all the NDAs or NDE stories and the research on it, saying how it's the brain synapses is closing down and it's causing illusions and delusions of the brain and blah, blah, blah. I don't believe any of that. I call it hogwash. Just because I know what I felt. I know what I saw. I know that there was relatives that told me things that I had no way of knowing of what was going to happen when I did come back. And so, and the miraculous thing of that is that Moffitt was, they had to do, my lung had collapsed. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this, Gary. But my lung had collapsed. They had been intubated me, putting the tube into my side, into my lung, and they did not give me, they said that he will not make it through the night. Then they said he won't make it through the next night. And they kept telling my mom and my son this night after night. And when my body shut down was because I was losing blood. Now, this is another weird part of this. Somehow I was losing blood, and they could not figure out why. There was no internal bleeding. They did CAT scans, MRIs, everything to try to figure out where was the blood going. It was like the